Simone Biles shocked the world, literally. Sometimes we say the world. Shocked the world, literally, by pulling out, I believe it was the team competition. She's also pulled out the all-around and a couple of the individual events, I believe. It's to be determined if she's going to pull out, I like the last 2 or 3 or whatever, that she has. What is your take on it, and what's your take on the reaction to it?
Pass. No, I'm joking.
That's what we're doing today?
All right, so, no, for real. I'm not going to criticize her in the sense that if she is going through something, whatever her reasoning is, I don't think it's my place to be but so critical. So if she ultimately decides that her mind is not in the right place to compete, then she shouldn't compete, and I support that 100%. But I will say that by and large, I'm disgusted with the United States Olympic team this year. I've never seen so many people celebrate second and third place. Like, we are a country of gold medals and winners. That is the precedent that has been set by previous competitors. And I'm not sure what this new wave of athlete has going on, but they got to tighten up, man.
You shared something with me. I believe it was high jumpers. I had no idea. They shared a gold medal. I've never heard of such.
It was, I think it was the long jump.
Was it? Okay.
It was high jump. But yeah, so they tied, and I guess either between the competitors or they asked the judge, but somehow, some way, they were allowed to be co-gold medalists, and they were celebrating and rolling all over the ground and everything. The one guy was crying. A jump off is the best part of the event. Like, if you ever had the privilege of being a part of one, like, that's the best part of the event, is to have two guys have to basically make their best on the one jump. And I just thought that, we're getting robbed of really key moments because of people not wanting to accept defeat. But that's what makes you a great athlete, is if you lose and come back, or if you overcome that particular obstacle.
I'm gonna criticize her because I think.
Hey, now, don't Michael Shea it.
No jokes. Right. But I'm gonna criticize her because I don't think mental health is your get out of jail free card from any consequence or anybody having an opinion. It is bad. It is something that I've struggled with and do struggle with on a daily basis. But you are responsible for what happens around that. So if you've been walking around with a literal goat in sequins on your uniform, I think that if you no longer can handle that pressure when it comes time to pay up, I think that matters. I think it matters if you seem to be struggling or seem to be not doing as well when you perform, and then you're in a team activity and you start screwing up and you tap out. I think the reason why we love these athletes is because they can overcome everything. They're like minor gods, like Michael Jordan. We see the pressure that most people couldn't handle. I think that is why you get the adoration. And that is why people like Giannis, that's why it meant so much, because we saw him struggle and overcome everything. It's not unusual for a person that loses or struggles to have a bad mental. George Foreman talks about deep depression. Ronda Rousey talks about deep depression after losses. LeBron talks about deep depression. Kevin Durant talks about a deep depression, not wanting to go out of the house after he just made his little decision to go to Golden State. Like, this is the normal part of sports, that there's a lot of pressure and it can eat you up. And now, if she can handle the pressure, hey, get the help or whatever. But do I get to say, as a person that watches sports, that I'm disappointed? Yes. Both can be true.
Yeah, I agree. You can have a side of the argument that's counter to compassion for the situation, and that's perfectly fine. But if it is true that they were, like, some of the things I've heard where she was getting judged differently because of the difficulty of her style,
and they wouldn't allow anybody else to do it. Well, yeah, they judge everybody's difficulty different, but they wouldn't let her max out because nobody else can do it, so they're scared somebody's going to get hurt. So you are punishing her and handicapping her.
Yeah, and if that's the case, that is kind of messed up, and I can see as an athlete where that might make you not want to do anything, or think about it, if you've been practicing this routine for X amount of time and now you got to switch it up, that also puts you at risk, you know. So if that is the case, then that's fine. But yeah, the whole mental health aspect that we're hearing from athletes nowadays, it shouldn't be a crutch in the sense in the way that it's used. So like, it doesn't seem to ever come up until basically shit hits the fan.
Yeah. And Kevin Love had said it. And DeMar DeRozan has said it. And they took time off. If you want to take time off from work, you want to take time off for anything because of mental health, that's your right. But if you don't keep track of your mental health to the point where you're in the middle and everybody's dependent on you, and and you do represent the country when you're in the Olympics. They say, oh, she doesn't owe us anything. I don't know if she owes anything, but you are representing America. That is the purpose of it to the rest of the world. So there is that aspect, and they all will tell you that that's where they're doing. So that does matter, and I just mostly think that irritates me is the reaction to it. You can't criticize her because you didn't do it. What the hell? Then you can't criticize Trump, the worst president ever. You can't criticize, or at least in recent memory, you can't criticize Trump. You can't criticize the dog catcher, a teacher, a lawyer, a doctor. If a doctor leaves an instrument in your body, by that standard, you cannot criticize it. And I think they've made a whole set of rules for her because, to be honest with you, because she's black and because she's a woman. Because if it was a man, there's no way. And in this, I understand there's some inequities in life. I do understand that. But sports, you're asking me to treat you the same. And anybody I call a GOAT, even the tennis players, they're going to come up and not have that happen. So don't ask me to have two different standards for you. Or just tell me, and I'll say, okay, she's a girl. Don't worry about it. And I just want to read this too. To all the people that were saying, oh, it's not, and I understand about getting lost in the air, and I've done research about that. But and I listened to Michaela Maroney, and even somebody on our page quoted Dominique Dawes, but didn't quote all of it. But every last gymnast that said this is because you get stressed out and you basically freeze. They don't want to call it a choke, but it's not something that randomly happens to them. It's something that happens to them that's induced by stress. Dominique Dawes, who covered her the whole time, like covered her butt about, it's brave and everything. Even she said, this is a difficult task to do. In addition to being human and knowing that anything can happen, Dawes says, the pressure of the fans, friends, and family, I'm sure, eventually got to her, especially being a brand. She's a professional athlete, and it can be a little overwhelming at times. We all know what happened. Stop trying to lie and say this girl didn't crack and break under the pressure. Because she did. Now,